International Women's Day. You're a bad feminist. Ooh, oh my god, like. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This week we're going to be talking about International Women's Day, which is today, and I wanted to talk about my feelings as a feminist about this day. So what inspired this was the last few weeks. Obviously it's leading up to the day and there's such kind of big pressure and it's a big day on the calendar of feminists and people everywhere, and I kind of found myself not being as excited for it, almost slightly dreading it in a way, which was really interesting. It's kind of the first year that this happened to me. So I wanted to kind of talk more about that. And I suppose the feeling that like I felt bad for not being more excited, I was like, Lauren, you're a giant feminist. This is your day. You're a woman. This is your day. Like, what's going on? And I almost feel like, Lauren, if you don't celebrate it or if you don't do something ginormous or post or do something, then you're a bad feminist and you're a bad woman. Like, oh, and I was feeling all this pressure. And I was like, Lauren, women are made to feel bad for so many things in this world. I am not adding International Women's Day to that mix, but also it did just get me thinking more about like why I was feeling this way and what I think International Women's Day has kind of almost turned into, which I'm going to talk about in this video. So let's get into some of the reasons why I'm feeling a bit ooh this year. So the main one that stands out to me is just the fact that it's getting very corporate. Like, I kind of use that as kind of a catch-all term, but it's becoming very, almost like Valentine's Day or something. I don't know. It's becoming very like companies, you know, big organizations will celebrate the women in their company for, you know, this one day a year, and they'll shout from the rooftops like, oh, look at all the things we're doing to celebrate equality and all the things we've already done that make us like really like amazing in this field, and we're, you know, champions of women and we're great. And they make this big fuss on the 8th of March and then do not talk about it for the rest of the year. And that's what's happening more and more. And like every year, and like I feel like every year International Women's Day is getting bigger and bigger, which in theory you might say is great, but it's leading to more of this performative feminism, which is already so bad. It's like, you know, performative anti-racism or performative anything. It's becoming very like that. And like I've even seen it this year with, you know, friends of mine or people I know on LinkedIn posting about it, and I'm like, I know for a fact you do not care about women's rights, you do not care about gender equality. I know for a fact that your company is making you post this right now. Like, oh, and it's just leaving a really bad taste in my mouth, and it's really turning me off this day altogether. It's also just getting really like almost overwhelming. Like, there's so many events, there's so many talks and discussions and things being launched and all these symbolic gestures going on, and I actually feel quite overwhelmed, and I'm like finding myself being like, okay, what am I going to schedule now for the day? Like, what events am I going to prioritize? There's so many. How am I going to know which one is better? Like, so overwhelming. And again, it just comes back to the fact that like all this is happening on one day, and I'm like, what are you doing for the rest of the year? And it's just like, yeah, it's great to launch that initiative or do that thing on the 8th of March, but it's like, where's the actual change beyond just the symbolism of these things? Like, what, like, yeah, that's lovely, but where is the tangible effects of that? And why has my life not changed? My life as a woman changed as a result of you doing this lovely symbolic thing? Like, that's what I want to know. Like, quite selfishly, I'm like, how has my life been improved as a woman in this world by you doing nothing? And I would beg to guess that it hasn't changed at all, because you symbolically launching this thing or whatever didn't do all that much. And then I think what's interesting about International Women's Day in different countries is it kind of means different things in different countries. So, you know, I feel like in my world anyway, whatever that means, just in my kind of my social channels and just my kind of digital and physical environment, yeah, sure, International Women's Day is meant to be about, yeah, empowering women, we've achieved all this stuff. But in other countries, there's a little bit of a different vibe. Like, for example, I know in Russia it's a public holiday, and I know in places like Hungary, you know, or maybe some Eastern European countries, it's a day where, you know, you give women flowers and you care for the women, and it's not about kind of an empowering thing. It's like, it's almost like Mother's Day or something. It's like, let's celebrate the lovely women in our lives. Like, it's a different vibe. And I feel like in some of these countries, again, people think like, oh, well, you know, we're great. We love women. We cherish women. Yay, International Women's Day. But they're not actually thinking about like real systemic change or like actually making the world less sexist. It's just like, yeah, we love women. And that's it. And that is just so antithetical, is that the right word, to what we actually want from this day. Like, I'd rather not have any day than have a day like that where we're like, yeah, we love women. Like, no, not the vibe we're going for. And I mean, even if that is the vibe, yeah, we love women, I can guarantee you don't. You don't. You might love women, but you don't care about women. And there's a very big difference there. And as I said, like, it's just becoming very like Valentine's Day-esque. It's all very lovely and fluffy and happy. And it's like, I personally, like, I would love for more of my stuff to be quite happy-ish and get people involved through happy things. But I'm like, no. I'm like, where is the rage? Where, like, yes, we can do happy and fluffy all day long, but where is the rage? Where is the actual change? Where is the tangible stuff? You know, it's just very hallmarky, and I'm not about that life. And it's like, yeah, sure, yay, celebrate the day. And yes, we have achieved a lot, which is great. And I want to say I'm grateful for that, but I'm not grateful for being given a human right that men have had for ages. Like, Jesus Christ, like, we're starved of a right and then we're made to feel grateful for getting it. Oh my God, like, am I hearing the words coming out of my mouth? However, yes, it is great that we have made a lot of strides in gender equality, but we are nowhere near done. Like, we are not even close to being done. Like, I would maybe understand us being like, yay, International Women's Day, if we had achieved a lot, or we were somewhere near where we wanted to be. But we're nowhere near where we want to be. Like, for all women all over the world. Like, I'm not even going to go into the actual tangible effects of sexism in this video, because there's too much to talk about. Like, that's how not near we are to achieving equality. So it's like, what is this day achieving? What are we really celebrating? And also, what I think is interesting is, as we all know, on the 8th of March every year, one of the biggest Google searches is, when is International Men's Day? So I couldn't do that video without mentioning this. And I feel like people, men, will say things like, oh yeah, well, you know, women have their day, women have International Women's Day, they get all the attention then, therefore we can do whatever we like for the rest of the year. Or like, you know, if someone ever tried to say, oh well, you know, women, or the world is really bad for women, men might then say, well, look at all the attention International Women's Day gets. You know, you've achieved equality, what are you harping on about? That kind of vibe. And like, so in that sense, I'm not sure, is International Women's Day doing more harm than it is good, you know? I just like, and I know there are people who think that way, and I just wouldn't want like all the attention this day gets to then somehow give people permission to say, oh well, like, you've achieved equality, we don't need to do anything today for the rest of the year because of all the attention you get and the lack of attention we get on International Men's Day. You know, that kind of vibe. So I worry about that. And even this video, like, I felt nervous even doing this video, or when I, you know, making the notes for it, because I felt like a bad feminist, you know? I was like, oh my God, this is meant to be like the greatest day ever, and like, you know, the biggest holiday of the year for me. And I felt bad. But then I was on LinkedIn making my notes, and I saw an article written by Dr. Lena Abirafi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And it was basically talking all about this as I was making my own notes for this video. And so she actually gave me just that little bit of like, just like braveness and like guts that I needed to really go through with this video and not feel bad about it. I was like, okay, well, if someone else feels this way, then it's okay for me to feel that way. I know I shouldn't need someone else's like validation, but I do, so here we are. So I'm gonna link that article down below, because it actually said a lot that I thought was great, and yeah, said a lot of things much more eloquently than I could. But I'm going to point out some of the things that I really liked from it now. So one of the things she mentioned was just the whole, how we say happy International Women's Day, and I just like that she pointed that out, that it's like, well, what is happy about it? Like maybe we can actually say happy when we've actually achieved something. So that was really interesting and was kind of funny to point out. Another quote that I loved is, she said, marinating inequality, which I thought was just a lovely, just a great phrase. And she was saying it in relation to, you know, all these like giant gender equality accords that we have, all these big UN things, and you know, the Beijing Declaration, and all these great big documents that we have, and there's so much talk of equality, but again, it's just like, well, what is actually being done? You know, we're having all these talks and discussions and all these big documents, and we're all signing them, and we're all very big and fancy and important, and it's like, how, and this is me saying this, and I'm like, just how is, like, you know, the regular gal on the street, how is she benefiting from this? That's what I want to know. And so I thought that the phrase marinating inequality was just very poignant. Another point she made, which I thought was really interesting that I hadn't thought of, was the whole how, like, we're making celebrations, like we're having celebrations for International Women's Day, and it's like we have to organize these events ourselves, we have to make cupcakes for these events ourselves, and it's just like, yet, like, more unpaid labor and unpaid work for women who already have, like, jobs and families and 10 billion responsibilities. And it just, yeah, I thought that was really funny and interesting to point out. I also really liked the kind of imagery that that I kind of thought of when she said this line, that we're all almost sitting around waiting for International Women's Day. And I definitely find this, like, obviously me, I post about feminism and gender equality all the time, so I'm not just sitting around waiting for this day, but even at that, I feel the lead up to it in my body, and the tension, not tension, but I feel just the kind of the buzz rising for this day. It's like we're all just, and even me who talks about gender equality all the time, I still feel I'm like, oh, I have to mark this in my cat. I can't forget now to post on this on the 8th of March. And it's like, that's even me, but like other people who don't post about it ever, it's like we're all sitting around waiting for the 8th of March. Okay, when's it coming? When's it approaching? When's it coming? Then we talk about gender equality, woo, women, and then it's over. And we move on. And it's like instead of sitting around waiting for this one day, again, why aren't we talking about it now? Like, I almost feel like people think like, oh, we can't post about it on the 7th of March. Can't do that. Like, mortal sin has to be the 8th. Then people know we're really serious. You know, it's just all, it's so silly. Oh, and I feel sad. I feel sad because I'm just like, this is like the first year that I'm really feeling like this, and I'm like, God, is every year just gonna be like a dread leading up to the 8th of March? Like, oh, bottom line, and I'll finish the video now just to wrap it up, it's just, and I hope it's quite obvious from the video and what I've said, but it's just like, be authentic, actually care about women's rights, don't just talk about it on one day of the year and then be silent for the rest of the year. Actually affect change and actually just care, like that's all we want, and just stop making it into this hallmarky, like fluffy, happy day that actually means nothing and actually, I feel sometimes takes away from the cause and takes away from what we're actually trying to achieve, and fools people into thinking that we have achieved stuff, which is just so dangerous because we so have not. Basically, I would just say the energy that you have today around women, keep that for the entire year. Keep that always, not just for this one day. So that is me, that is my 2 cents, and actually a couple more cents thrown in. I hope that has resonated with some of you. Just be real and actually care is just where I'm at. So thank you so much for watching. If you have anything else that you want to contribute or add to the list, comment down below. Give the video a big thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video, which wasn't very happy and fluffy, but we are speaking the truth. Also, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!